Once upon a time, not so long ago, there was a girl named Eliana. Eliana and her family loved going to the beach, and every time they went there, she would run up and down the shoreline searching for seashells. She would do this until her pockets were full of the most beautiful ones she could find. And there was one area of the beach where Eliana always knew she could go to find the most seashells in one place. For some reason, the waves always brought them together to this one area of the beach. But one day, when she went to this section of the beach, something strange stood out that she had never seen before. Just a short ways off in the water, she saw what looked like a huge shell, bigger than anything she had ever seen on the beach before. Normally, the shell she found might be the size of a quarter or a penny or maybe even a $50 coin, but this thing was gigantic. She waded out into the water and picked it up, and it was the biggest conch shell she had ever seen. It was like the size of her whole head. And as she stood there, amazed at her find, she remembered something her mom had told her one time when they saw one of these shells at a gift shop. Her mom said, "Hold the shell up to your ear, Eliana, and you'll be able to hear the ocean." So Eliana held the shell up to her ear, and she could definitely hear something in there. She wasn't quite sure it was the ocean, but something made the sound of a far-off, dull roar. So she stood there for a few moments listening to the sound, when all of a sudden, it started making a different kind of sound. A sound she never expected to hear from a shell. And it sounded like a voice, and it said, "You and I are bound by fate, child. Take me home and let the adventures begin." Eliana couldn't believe what she was hearing. She ran back to her parents and brother and told them all to listen. But all they could hear was the normal, dull, roaring sound of the ocean, or whatever that far-off sound was. And Eliana's mom said, "Oh, honey, you have such an imagination. I'm glad you found a fun game to play with your new shell." And Eliana said, "I'm not joking around. I really heard a voice. Can't you hear anything?" "Eliana, it's time to go, okay? Help us pack up now. You can bring your shell with you and keep playing your imaginary game when we get home, okay?" Eliana didn't know what else to say. She wanted them to believe her, but if they couldn't hear it, what else could she do to convince them? So even though she was frustrated, she helped them pack up the car, and they got in the car and they drove home. And just a little while later, when they got home, Eliana ran up to her bedroom with the shell and put it up to her ear again. And this time, she heard it say something different. "Your home is a resting place of a legendary treasure, long lost and forgotten. If you can find it, your life will change forever." Eliana was amazed that the shell was still talking to her, and she was even more fascinated by what it just said. Treasure? What in the world could that be? Eliana didn't know where or how to find this treasure, but she ran downstairs and outside and started walking around her yard to see if she could find anything that looked like it might lead to treasure somewhere. And as she walked, she could feel the shell pulsating in her hand as she roamed through her yard. It started growing warmer in her hand, and when she brought the shell up to her ear, she heard it whisper something. It said, "Dig here." And it said this right as she reached the old oak tree. Eliana set the shell down as she ran to her garage and grabbed a shovel and then ran back to the spot, and she started digging. She dug and she dug and she dug for hours until the hole in the ground was so deep she couldn't even see over the edge. And by this time she was exhausted. And right as she was about to give up, she felt the shovel hit something hard. She crouched down to dig more carefully with her hands until she uncovered a very old, rusty iron chest. And just then, Eliana's brother ran out and saw the huge hole she had dug in their yard. But Eliana was laser focused on her new discovery. She knew the shell was special, and now she believed every word it said, even though no one else could even hear it. When Brady saw what his sister had discovered and when he realized the shell had told her where to find it, he knew something big was going on. So he helped her uncover it, and they worked together to hook it up to a rope and pulley, and they heaved and heaved until they hoisted it right up to the ground. Eliana grabbed the shovel and started prying the lid open to reveal a chest full of glittering jewels, ancient coins, and a peculiar-looking key that hummed with energy and almost looked like it was glowing. The conch shell thrummed in response, its voice now a triumphant echo. "The legacy belongs to you now, child." But the discovery didn't remain a secret for long, as Eliana and Brady stood there in awe of what they had found. They didn't realize there was another set of eyes peering over the fence. That's right. Someone had been watching this whole time, and they saw everything. And they had their own plans for what they would do with Eliana's discovery. As the stranger climbed the fence and began walking towards Eliana and Brady, Eliana lifted the shell up to her ear once more, and she heard it speak again, but this time it only said 4 words. "Watch out behind you." But that's a story for another day.